Hello, everyone. As we're waiting for folks to join us, we would love to hear from you in the chat box where you are joining us from. Yay! Oh, look at all these faces. That's so cool.
Hi, Milk. Glad you can join us.
Nice to be here. Good to see you, Larry.
While we're waiting for people to tell us where they're joining us from, I also want to remind everyone to also, if you have any questions, to please put them in the chat box because they're going to help inform our work over the next 4 days and throughout next year. So please ask questions and we are going to harvest from those. And again, they'll help inform and guide us as we continue this into the heart work. Wow, that's so cool. All right, well, we only have an hour and a half on this talking circle, so I'm going to go ahead and get started with some introductions. My name is Maria Walker, and I'm the Executive Director of Wisdom Weavers of the World. For those of you who may or may not be familiar with the origin story of Wisdom Weavers, it emerged out of a gathering in Hawaii in 2017. And from there, it's where 13 Indigenous elders from around the world came together and created this beautiful unified message of bringing humankind back into the heart. And so here we are in 2021, breathing life into this message. And our mission now at Wisdom Weavers of the World is to bring humankind back into the heart by sharing wisdom of our elders. And so this gathering today is part of a greater series we are calling Into the Heart, Indigenous Pathways to Love. And I invite you to visit our events page at wisdomweavers.world/events to see the schedule of events for across the 4 days. And just to let you know, in 2022, we will continue to host ceremonies and gatherings, all leading up to our in-person gathering in Kauai next year. So we had hoped to gather again in person for this event, but of course the pandemic prevented that. So, but again, we're going to have webinars as part of this Into the Heart series, continuing into 2022, leading up to this event. And so speaking of what we're going to be doing next year, this is an opportunity for me to talk about reciprocity. And just to invite you, these events are about weaving love around the world. And we are inviting you to help weave love back into us by considering to give us a financial donation. We will put our link to our donation page in the chat box. And just to let you know where your financial donations would go, they go to support they would pay for elder honorariums. They help us with this technology that is allowing us to share this wisdom with all of our growing community of like-minded hearts. And of course, it will also go towards our event in 2022. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our amazing elders, and we're going to start with Larian, the co-founder of Wisdom Weavers of the World, and he's going to talk about going into the heart. So thank you.
Hi, Kit. Long time no see. Glad to see you here. Angwan, kamagala kamna kamagala kasuda, tinganunganwe, unanganasakta kuyach. He said, hello, my other self, which is the way our people greet each other every day. And we live in the Bering Sea. We've been there over 10,000 years and we're still there. And he said, the afternoon tastes good. And that my traditional name is Kuyach, which means an arm extending out from the body, a carrier of ancient messages to modern times, a messenger. So thank you all for being here, especially our elders. This has been we had a good kickoff this morning, and we're continuing on. I explained to people who were there this morning that I work with the wisdom weavers of the world, which are elders from all over the world, that met in Kauai in 2017 to discuss two questions. One, what is the state of the world as they see it now? And two, what must we be doing now? And as a result of that, we developed a core team that is getting the messages of the elders to the world via the social media. The main message of the elders is that traditionally the heart used to tell the mind what to do, now the mind tells the heart what to do. And this consciousness is creating all the ills that we see in the world today. And that the answers are really coming from the heart, or must come from the heart. And the heart will tell the mind what to do. And the mind's job is to implement that which your heart is telling you. And that takes real courage. When I started this journey over 40 years ago, I was the peak of patriarchy. I was Commissioner of Commerce and Economic Development for the state of Alaska, the first native in Alaska to be in that position. It was a cabinet position, and I was chair of some 17 boards and councils. And I gave it all up in one day because the inspiration of my people was what guided me. My people, we developed the most densely populated linear mile of shoreline in all of North America for our time, in a place that's hard to eke out a living. And we didn't even have food storage technologies except for air drying. And when I asked my elder on St. Paul, Father Lessenkoff, what is this all about? And he pointed and he says, you see those seabirds over there? You think they worry about where they're going to get their food the next day? And are we any different? And the answer, of course, is no. And that's the understanding and knowing that our people got. And we also know that, we didn't invent our original instructions, that this was given to us from the womb at the center of the universe. And it is through that means that we begin to know who we call Aroh, the maker. God, for those of you who understand God, that this is the way the heart, we learned, is in touch with the divine. It's the only place that is in touch with the divine. And we don't think from the mind. When the mind starts operating, we go into guilt, shame, remorse, anger, rage, jealousy, everything, and all these kinds of things. And then fear, which is projection into the future, something that didn't happen yet. Every place except the present moment in the heart. And our people were people that were in the present moment and in the heart, understanding that the rest will be taken care of. And this is a way that we operated, and that's what I remembered, and said, now I've learned about Western society, I can now go back to what my people are. And so I did. And when I resigned from everything, I dropped everything in one day. People thought I was crazy. And because, you know, I had a position in patriarchy. And I decided that now was time to drop it all. And at that time, you know, people who called me friend, they disappeared. And so I didn't have any external mirror to reference who I was. I was thrown upon myself in the moment to experience who I am without reference to anybody else or anybody gauging who I am. And that's when the magic happened. That's when I was invited, Suzanne Sweebold and Helen Corbett are there in Canmore, Canada. They are two of our elders, and I was invited there by them to visit, and magical things happened spiritually. And one of the things that I had while I was there was we got a call from someone who wanted to give me some messages from the Hopi and Maori. And she asked if we could meet in a sacred forest. And so Suzanne and Helen gracefully took me there. And I walked in this place where this woman told me a story about the Hopi and Maori and how they kept their sacred stone tablets that contained their laws for living and their prophecies. And at the end of it, she asked, would you be willing to carry these stories? I didn't know what I was doing. I said, yeah, sure, I will. And so when I went back to Alaska, by circumstances that were serendipitous, I would say, the person who was supposed to MC the Indigo Girls concert got sick, and they asked me to host the Indigo Girls concert, and they said, as a host, you can say anything you want. And so what I did was I talked about this message from the Hopi and Maori, and I talked to 4,000 people. And, you know, I was nobody. I didn't know anybody. And then the next thing that happens is I get a call from Oregon, and they asked me if I could speak at their grand festival. I think there were about 80,000 people that attended that festival. The doors just opened up. It was quite amazing. And of course, ever since then, I got invited by elders from different parts of the world. I went to Patagonia in southern Argentina, and the people there had invited elders to come down to be in part of their ceremonies. And the elders, I was coordinating an elders council at that time, and the elders asked me to go, and none of them went. And I understood why later on, because it was 125 degrees during the day and 25 degrees at night. It was a 100-degree temperature difference between day and night. I usually don't say this, but I probably peed about 25 times a day. I drank so much water, and and when I went there, the people there, the Mapuche people, we didn't. They sent an emissary to Alaska to give this message to the elders, an invitation, and uh, they, uh, then the person left, and there's no way to communicate with them because they communicate only in a traditional way by sending a messenger, and they don't have any modern means of communication. No telephone, no computer, etc., etc. And so I went there without knowing what the people were going to say about me going there. And when I went there, the chief who went to meet me, uh, uh, I talked with him and I said, let me explain why it's me that's here and only me. And he said, not necessary. The elders already told us you were coming. And I said, how did the elders know? And then they said, the elders talked to the earth and the sky, and they knew you were coming. And so I knew then I was with real elders. And we performed ceremonies at their sacred site, Anaconda Grande, and the ceremony lasted for several days, and they did what is called the Troika Dance, which is a dance of the drunken ostrich. And I asked them why they're doing this dance, and they said, well, the ostriches know how to call rain into being. And so when they do that, they said, the ostriches look like they're drunk. They're staggering all over the place. And so that's what they did. And I tell you, at the end of that, I could hear thunder and lightning and see the rain coming. It hadn't rained in that place in 9 years. And the rain came, and I kid you not, the raindrops were like this big. They were huge. And then on either side of the sacred grounds where we met, there were 4 eagles, 2 on each side, 2 or 4 birds. 2 were eagles, eagles at sea eagles, and then the other side were condors, and the condors were going counterclockwise, and the eagles were going clockwise. And the elders then knew that they had accomplished what they intended to do, which was to bring back the ceremony they hadn't performed in 150 years, and to bring back the youth. So that's an example of what happens when you just let go of everything. The Hopi Maori say, let go of the sides of the riverbank, move toward the center, find those who have done the same, and celebrate. And what that means is letting go of the sides of the riverbank means letting go of all human attachments. Move to the center means moving to your proverbial heart center and the center of the river of life, because it knows where it's going. We don't. And then find those who've done the same means find those who have had the courage, like you did, to jump. Those, according to those elders, is going to be your new tribe. And that's what the elders here are working at, is to help people go to their hearts. We've done many ceremony gatherings before this, and at the end, people are very excited and grounded in this energy, and then they say afterwards, well, how do I get to my heart now? Because it all faded away. And so that's what the elders are trying to do to help us return to our hearts. So that's my story, and I bless you, and I pray that you all are able to get to your hearts. Maria?
All right. So just a little time check. It's 11:56 or 12:56 Pacific time. And so let's see. Yeah, or one. Sorry. So who would like to speak next? Which elder, please? You want to raise your hand or just turn your mute off?
I'll go ahead and speak. Thank you, Maria. And thank you, Alarian. I always love your stories, and there's another new piece in there, and which is really wonderful. So I'm Anita Sanchez. I'm Nawa, which many know as Aztec and Mexican American. And boy, there's so many stories from the heart. But when I said yes to come and be a part of this, and I was back in 2017 as well, I feel so honored. And so who shows up for me, of course, is from the beginning, which I was always told, start at the beginning. And I think about my grandmother and my mom, and who always encouraged us to dream. We were quite economically poor. That is to say, 8 of us in 2 rooms in the middle of an inner city. And but until my father passed away, we would go to the Osage Reservation, who were friends of my grandmother, who is the Nawa. Her cousin had married, and we would learn so much about the people, and then my grandmother would teach us so much. But part of the practice every morning, I'm one of those people that for decades have gotten up to see the sunrise. And because part of the sun was let me know, and my grandmother would help us remember that the light does not come on in our mind. The light comes from the sun, from the moon, from the stars, and that we have to stay present to understanding that we're part of this hoop of life. And so it was very strange going to school and having everything supported the mind. And I was pretty good in school, so I went all the way through PhD. But what happened in my earliest dream, I share all the time. And I share it whether I'm in the Amazon with my relatives, the Ashwar and Sapara people, or whether I'm in a C-suite of a large global corporation. I talk about dreams because at age 3 or 4 is my earliest memory of a dream. And the dream was of the earth, and there were all these stick people, different sizes and colors. And what was really quite unusual about this too was that all of us had our hands on each other's hearts. We weren't holding hands. And I remember in kindergarten, the teacher said, draw what you're going to be when you grow up. And I drew that. And I was the last one to share my drawing. And I said, and I'm one of those, and there's millions of us, and we're all connecting each other's hearts. And the children all laughed. And the teacher said, put away your crayons. And I knew then I was in my heart that I hadn't forgotten. I was quite young still. And I should have been embarrassed. I mean, I think as a 5-year-old, but all I could remember is that my feet going down into the earth and my head felt like it was way up in the sky. And somehow I knew that this was why I was here. This was, and I remember smiling as a 5-year-old, and I continued to have that dream. And that dream has helped me through many difficult times of abuse, of the murder of my father, which was race related, for many, many things. So I share this, that even though there are challenges, and there always will be in terms of the human, the heart is what allows to stay whole and as clear as the sun each morning that I see, that I stand there, just gratitude for every seed of light that comes in to every part of my body. And so one of the things I know is that I thought I knew is that I don't know how the heart is going to take you on the journey. And I stopped long ago trying to figure that out. Don't know. At one point I thought, oh, so I got my PhD, so I'm supposed to do this corporate stuff. But it felt so it's so foreign to what I knew and my values and things from my culture. So I would always volunteer my time with Indigenous people, teaching young people who are going to go into business what I taught in the business world. And what happened one of these times in 94, 95 was I was with Don Koyas and a group of elders. And that's when I heard this amazing prophecy, the Eagle Hoop prophecy, which I put then together with these other prophecies from my culture and that I had heard all over the world. And what happened from that, I just want to say, and this is still coming from the heart, I heard that prophecy in 1995. I wrote a book in 2017, but before I wrote it, I got a hold of Don Koyas and asked, I have a question for you. And he said, the answer is yes. And I said, well, I haven't even asked the question. He goes, no, the answer is yes. We already know what you want. And I'm like, how could you know? I haven't even seen you in a number of years. He goes, we know the answer is yes. We always knew a woman. It would be women who would be carrying out the messages. And so you're calling about writing the Eagle Hoop prophecy and using your own stories, both the highs and the lows, but understanding that when we come from this core with a whole human being, that's what you're calling about. And I was like, sort of like, how could you know? Well, that's what they said. So I will tell you that what has happened since that time is that more and more, I have always been connected to elders from all different parts of the world, but it just multiplied. And what has happened is that I feel that, and I'm told by different elders from different, whether it's Kyrgyzstan or South Africa, or wherever, that being a messenger is not an easy thing. But even when I say that, I'm smiling, because what I want you to hear is that when you are living from your heart, even the difficult things, the things I can't even imagine, begin to happen. And that is because it is connected to the heart of the earth and the heart of the universe, which will always provide. It's always here. We have enough. And the little girl who grew up, in a 2-room house didn't know that at that time. And yet I did, because of the Indigenous elders in my life, my grandmother and others, who said, keep dreaming. So one of the pathways, and there are many pathways to the heart, but is to listen. Is to really slow down enough to listen so you can hear what the heart is saying. And then some other things I found about that I just want to share is that supportive relationships. I had so many supportive relationships, and heed those. And those aren't only two-legged. Sometimes it's the tree. Sometimes it's the air. Sometimes it's that sun that we get to greet every day. But the supportive relationships are all about love and heart, about helping us, live and be well and be, part of this amazing hoop. The third thing that I found in this process is unconditional love. In that when I'm in my mind, when I forget about being in the heart, because it's not like you arrive in the heart and you stay there, at least not for me. I'm on a journey. So I'm human and I fall off sometimes. But how I come back is an unconditional love of self and other. So the heart is the way to freedom. Heart is the way to love. And heart is also what Basil Braveheart told me before the pandemic happened in my last Sundance. And he said, Anita, also it is the passcode to your own divinity, and to really see the divinity of others. And so I'm just so grateful. And then the last thing I want to say is that about the heart, listening, supportive relationships, unconditional love of self and others, and get into action. It means not to be all fret and worried, as Ilarian was talking about, this fear of things that haven't even happened. I mean, I could just go into that at different times. Oh my gosh, but just like letting go of that and just start. Because even if it's not the right step at that moment, oh, thank you. That means I try another step or another step, and things open up. So I thank you for letting me speak and share some of my journey. I look forward to sharing more when I'm with you again on Sunday. And thank you to every one of you, and all your ancestors are here. And I see in these cells and beyond these cells that they know each other because they are part of the heart of all of our heart. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anita. That was a great story. You know, I met Don Coyes, and the centerpiece of the hoop of 100 eagle feathers is from Alaska, from us. It was brought, a man called me up from Kodiak and said, I saw something very strange today. I saw 13 ravens, and in the center was an eagle, and I didn't understand what was happening. At the end of it, the eagle was dead and at my doorstep. And what should I do? And I said, well, there's Don Coyes, and he's looking for a centerpiece of a feather. So take the white feather from the eagle. First ask permission from the eagle, and then thank the eagle for giving this great gift. And for those of you who don't know Don Coyes, he put together a hoop of 100 eagle feathers. And this eagle feathers hoop, when it's completed, goes in the 4 directions of the U.S. And with the prophecy underneath it that when the hoop of 100 eagle feathers moves along like this, a great healing will take place. Thank you, Anita.
Who would like to speak next? Suzanne? Okay. Helen?
Hi, everyone. I'm Helen Corbett. I'm sitting, Suzanne's leaning away from me right now. She's looking like she doesn't want to plunge in. Suzanne Sweebold is sitting beside me. And many years ago, 40 years ago, how is that possible? 40. Suzanne and I went to the Pribilof Islands and met the Anungan people there on St. Paul and St. George Islands. It changed our lives. But before that had happened, Suzanne had had an experience in wilderness that she wanted to talk to you about. And it's at the basis of wisdom. She always contemplates wisdom weavers. What are we weaving? What is wisdom? Go.
Thanks, Laura. Well, that's something that I've often wondered when I hear about wisdom weavers, because that's the first thing I ask is, what are we weaving? And what is wisdom? What is wisdom? And so one of the things that I wrote down, I write down most of my ideas about stuff. And wisdom, there's a wisdom about insecurity. And insecurity is what? The unknown. So there's a wisdom in what is insecurity, the unknown, and why is that good? Because we're open to discovery. And this is something, because I'm a professional artist and I'm still teaching just like I was in the university. And I've got women that are in their 70s and haven't done art before, and they are going lickety cut. But when it comes to knowing, they have put a piece of paper up and they haven't done anything yet on it with the problem I told them they're going to work with. And finally I said, what is it what's going on? Nobody's doing anything. And they said, almost as a chorus, we're afraid we're going to ruin it. And I said, ruin what? There's nothing on your page. And so that got me thinking about a lot of things. And one of them is, know who you are. So you can become what you can be. And that's something that we have a lot of things in our culture that demand, or hopefully that we pay attention to them, you know, advertising, all this advertising. I don't have a device, but other people have devices that they look up everything. And I said one time about some people were visiting, and I said, in Canmore, we have a lot of spiritual people. Oh, really? And I said, and we pulled up to a four-way stop, and there was this. And they said, what are they doing? I said, they're on their devices. And I said, some of us, that's very spiritual because they have their heads bowed. So anyway, there were some of the jokes. But anyway, what I was going to talk about is that wonder is the basis of wisdom. I don't know how many of you have ever thought of that, but it is when you wonder about things, and what you wonder about is what you want to pay attention to.
Now tell us what happened to you in the early 1970s that ignited your sense of wonder.
Okay, we'll backtrack and get it in here. So I don't know if you can see that very well. Anybody can't see it? Okay.
Oh, I've got it there.
Okay.
You got to
Well-
see the poop on the arm.
That was the unknown. No, anyway, so I was on the Galapagos Islands, and that's when there hardly was anybody that went to the Galapagos. And we got special permission, a couple of friends of mine and I, we got special permission to go to the Galapagos. So as we were going along the beaches, and they have seals, and they have some occasional whale, and they've got tons of birds. So we're walking along, and I happen to have my arm out, I don't know, rub my eye or something, I had it out. And all of a sudden, this huge bird comes down plunk on my arm. Now I'm talking about insecurity and unknown and all that stuff. And I went, huh? And it just clombed onto my arm. And I tried everything to get rid of it. And he thought it was a joyride. So I just paid no attention, just started laughing at him. So my friend snapped a picture. Well, then it turned around. It turned the speed around, his body around, and he started pulling on my hair. I have short hair down near my neck, and pulling away at it. And I thought, ouch, ouch, can you get off of here? And then it kept going for about half an hour, and then it flew away. So when we went back to the Darwin Research Station on the Galapagos, I've been all these islands. I told them about it. They said, really? And they said, that's how the booby bird does his mating. And I said, what? I said, they usually pluck the feathers from the female, and he saw he could pull on your hair and mistook it for feathers. So that was a big turning point. Going to the Galapagos was a big turning point in my life about the unknown and about wonder, because we were just 4 people that were allowed to go on the island with all this wildlife. And it was something else, because we had to sleep with the seals, and they would bump us and push us and all sorts of things going on. But it really had a lot to do with what I contemplated about what wonder is about. So I jotted down some stuff. So wonder is why, what, when, who wins, who loses, how much, for how long, and then what. And one of the first things that came to my mind when I was wondering is, why do we put up with and practically condone inequality? Now I hear we have a lot of good talk about being human and all this stuff, but I'm still very curious. Curious gets wonder going, and wisdom. What is it that we continually just put up with inequality all over the world. All over the world, the inequality is just outrageous. And so I'm the type of person that wants to find out what's going on here. Why? What are we doing to do this? And so that's when I was thinking about the wisdom of insecurity and the unknown, which most inequality people have to go along with. So then I was asking myself, what is a human being? We use that word all the time. Oh, it's a human being. What is a human BE-ing? What is the human being? And so I started asking people, and they go, huh? And I said, okay, you're just being right now, huh? So that's when I started making some notes and doing some thinking about the human being. Being is what we're doing, what we're happening. And we happen life. We happen life. But we say, oh, that happened to me. But we don't realize that what's coming off of us is happening life. And then we react because we think that something's happened to us. So I just jotted down some things to start with, and I'm sure you can add to the list. Tenderness, kindness, forgiving. And if you want to be forgiven, ask for help that you can forgive someone else. So then, tenderness, kindness, forgiving, choice, no abandonment, sharing, giving, thankful, and you can go down and list a whole pile of others. But this is what's interesting to me, is that I just underwent about 3-4 years ago, I underwent open heart surgery. And see, we're talking about the heart. This is the image that keeps coming. It's just, when I had all sorts of operations. Anyway, it's a wonder I'm here. So anyway, what happened is when I was to be wheeled into the operating room for open heart surgery, or I would die. And so as they were wheeling me in, I started, at 83 years old or 82 then, I'm crying for my mother. Mommy, mommy, I can't do this without you. I was a mess. This is my heart. But my mind works with my heart. They're not separated. They work together. And so there was a figure that suddenly came towards me. And the woman hadn't wheeled me through the doors to the operating room. But I saw this hot coals, and I saw a person walking towards me. And he had what you would call swaddling clothes, something in his arms. And I thought, oh my God, what's going to happen? And this voice said, Suzanne, I've carried you through every fire you've ever started. And I was dumbfounded. I just went, really? That I've started. And he saved me from them all. And I thought, what is this? And that's where I was thrown back on my upbringing, which was a lot of spirituality. And that was, know who you are so you can become what you can be. And that was another huge step in my life. And then I started smiling. And then the one that was wheeling me through said she saw me smile after I was crying, saw me smile, and just saw me turn my head a bit. And she wheeled me through, had the operation. When I woke up, my doctor was whispering in the ear and said, Suzanne, that was perfect. Oh, that was a huge thing. That was.
I'm just telling you to wind her up.
Okay. So anyway, I'll leave that for now because I have other things that relate to this whole business about our wisdom weaving. So I'll leave it with you for now. Is what are we weaving and why? Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. That's really a good story, and you know about wonder. Um, you know I asked the elders, you know, what's the basis of culture, and they say that our teacher for our cultures, for what we do, are as a 2-year-old child, and the children, because they're real. They don't have the guards that we have as adults. And all of you can remember when you used to wonder about an insect or a leaf or something. You would just stay there for an hour and just be amazed by it. And so it's very true. I don't know any elder that doesn't have a twinkle in their eye, and because they have the wisdom of the elders and the innocence of a child. But thank you for offering that.
And Larry, I just wanted to insert a quick little anecdote of when we were on the Pribilofs and you were the manager of the local corporation.
Okay.
And we went on that infamous camp house journey, and we had like, you had that blue Bronco and we'd stuffed it full of stuff because we were going to a remote place on the island, and it was raining. It was a horrible day, and we were impatient to get going. It was late in the afternoon, and he kept getting calls, and then just as we're sitting in the car, somebody comes up to you. Somebody who wasn't in your little circle in the village. And he was talking on and on to you, and he crossed his chest like this, and he bowed to you. And we thought, what's that? What's going on? And so you listened to him and said something to acknowledge him. And he bowed again with his crossed hands, and you parted. And you said, when we got in the car, we were like, what was that about? And you were like, you said very like nonchalantly, well, it's Forgiveness Day. And he had been thinking bad thoughts about me. And he came to ask my forgiveness. But you just said, oh yeah, it's Forgiveness Day. And we were like, wow, that is something. We just couldn't believe we saw that in action with somebody. I even remember his name, and the whole thing had such an impression on me.
Yeah, I had forgotten that story. Thank you for reminding me.
Hey,
Maria?
Was that Sal that was going to try to speak?
yeah, can you all hear me?
Now we can.
Okay, I'm hitting my space bar, and that's giving, so you can hear me now.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, introduce yourself, Sal.
I'm an elder from the Warm Springs Confederated Tribes in Central Oregon. And I met Larry here up at what I call a tree hugger conference. But I was curious because I thought we were going to be talking about some of what we're talking about now. But I was a little disappointed. But what I see missing in all of this is what I've been taught, and not only by.
Unfortunately, you're still cutting out, Sal.
Larry,
Yeah,
can you hear me now? Okay.
so far.
Okay.
Can't hear you anymore, Sal.
How's that? Can you all hear me?
We do now, but we didn't a second ago.
Okay, because
Oh, shucks.
Yeah, Sal, you're still having connection problems.
yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be in and out. So maybe I should just hold off then. Because
Okay.
I thought I had it.
So who would like to speak next?
I'd be happy to.
All right, Deanna.
All right. So Suzanne asked us, what are we weaving? So I'd like to say, weaving my heart to yours, bringing our hearts together. And I'd like to also speak about the little girl that Anita spoke about, her little girl inside of her. And Suzanne spoke about know thyself. How this little girl that I was came to know herself from the heart. I grew up in a very, very head, mind focused household. Both of my parents very intellectual, very cerebral, very unspiritual in any way. And what was that journey? So I was born in Romania and immigrated with my parents to Israel when I was 3. And here I was, a 3-year-old girl, coming to a place where no one understood my language and I didn't understand anyone. And slowly I've started weaving my way into understanding with my mind. So the story goes that I didn't speak a word for 3 months and just absorbed. And after 3 months or so, the kindergarten teacher came to my mom and said, maybe she's slow, she's taking her time, but nothing is happening, she's not saying a word. After 3 months or so, I opened my mouth and I spoke fluent Hebrew. And I refused to speak one more of Romanian to my parents or to anyone. My grandparents never learned Hebrew throughout their lives, but I refused. So that was my mind. So with my mind, I gathered the information, I gathered the language, I wove it into myself, and that was it. And I cut myself off with one fell swoop. There was no more Romanian in my heart, in my vocabulary, in my being. And I'm looking at the years that went on from there. There was a part of me that was cut off, part of my heart that shriveled away. I moved to England, to London, England, when I was a young adult, and there was the same place of wanting, an inner place of wanting to be like anyone else. I was very much regretting I wasn't British because everyone could know that I wasn't a native. So another part of me was put aside, cast aside, and moved to the United States about 30 years ago, almost. And there was an embracing all of a sudden of all the strands that made up me. The braid of the Romanian, the Hebrew, the English, braiding together the parts of who I was. So I was moving from my mind into a place of what was the hard place that I moved into. It was into self-acceptance. I had to accept myself first before I could accept everyone else. So the mind categorizes, the mind judges, and the mind makes distinctions, but it does not accept. And throughout my childhood, I made distinction. This wasn't me, and this was me. I couldn't be accepting these parts of me, and I was okay with these parts of me. And what transpired over the years was a and moving down from the categories into an opening of accepting who I am. And it is only in accepting, so Suzanne was saying, know who they are, know who you are. And my strand here to add is accept who you are, because it was only when I was accepting who I was and weaving all of my facets and strands together that I could become whole. And I'd like to share with you a trilingual poem that I wrote to bring into being this weaving of all parts of myself. And as I weave my parts of myself into me, I weave us all in together, because as we weave internally, we weave interconnectedly between us. So I will end with a poem, a trilingual poem in Hebrew, Romanian, and English, Roots, Radachine, שורשים. שורשיי לוחשים אליי מן האדמה, my roots whisper כנשימה, שופטesc rădăcinile din pământ. Mă întorc înăuntru și sunt ahat mehen, now and then strămoșii mă cântă înapoi. My ancestors call me to deploy my soul, אני רוקדת את מחול הדורות, weaving generations of blood and bone, שוזרת עד אחרון, ג'נרציה דה סנג'ה, את מעגלי אמותיי, את שיר אבותיי, היי, דנסה זקומינה, ובאחת הנה, we are one. Thank you.
Thank you, Deanna. That was beautiful. Yeah, the elders always talk about forgiveness, and it's forgiveness to self that is first most important, because unless you forgive yourself, you're not going to forgive others.
Yes.
Okay, Gina.
Hello, everyone. What a privilege to be here. Hang on. Hello, elders. Hello, everyone who's joining us. My name is Gina Perez Barron. This is my first time being part of this, and it's such a privilege. I want to start with how I show you who I am. It says there that I'm Apache and Chicana. And it's actually it's a misnomer. There are six Apache tribes, each with their own identity, their own customs and culture, throughout Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and Oklahoma. And I can't tell you which one of those I am. And that's because I'm a descendant of the doctrine of discovery, and directly impacted by the cultural kind of genocide that has been practiced on my people. So my work, both internally, my own personal journey, and with others, I treat addiction in predominantly Chicana and Indigenous communities, addiction to alcohol, to heroin. And what that work really has consisted of is what really is a ferrying process. I'm not a ceremonial leader. It's a privilege to be here, able to speak with all of these kind of elders who are. I'm really a ferrying kind of woman, because I believe that we live in what is a toxic environment, but what's become toxic. We have toxified our relationship with each other and with the environment. And what's being put in place here that we're all participating in is actually an enormous gift. I'm not accustomed to these words and this kind of wisdom being shared so freely. And what I know is that we're not going to get where we need to get without this kind of knowledge and without all of us really finding our way home. You know, and Indigenous means from place at the core of its definition. And all of us come from place. Everyone who is on planet Earth today has been touched by colonization, whether we remember or not. And what we're talking about now are those who were so blessed to have maintained the traditions and the knowledge and the way to get back in relationship. And we're bringing it back to each other. When I treat addiction, I talk about 3 layers of treatment, right? The first layer is the medication. We get people comfortable in their own skin because we don't know how to be anymore, right? We don't know how to do this thing called life, this human being, in a way that actually feeds us and is in relationship. And so we numb out with all of these things that we're addicted to, whether it's a substance or, you know, or this technology. So first we get comfortable in our skin, right? Second is the behavioral health piece, where we actually learn how to be in relationship, learn how our thinking is and how trauma affected those things. And then the deepest and the strongest kind of medicine are exactly what is being spoken about here. It's reaching back to our ancient technologies, our ancient sciences, our traditional kind of wisdom, and that's where our deepest medicine, which is going to really heal and transform and bring us back in right relationship. I've stepped off the path and you know, and dropped it all as well. And I'm in the very beginnings of doing that, having realized that that the way that we practice, the way we practice kind of medicine as a corporation, as a commodity, isn't working. I've dropped off the edge, as Larian said earlier, and I'm really waiting for that kind of miracle and learning the hard lesson that I need to act. I'm putting in place the tools that I gave to my patients and remembering that I am my relative, right? We're not just helping out there. We have to join this hoop of life, right? We have to be part of our own kind of medicine. What we call, so much of what we call new discoveries right now are really not new. They're re-emerging truths that were previously lived and embodied by the traditional kind of people who knew how to be in relationship. And there's one in particular that I want to share with you today. We call it now internal family kind of systems, right? Or inner child kind of work, right? Since I was born, I've had this, what I call a committee in my head, right? And all of the stages of development and who we've been, right? Those layers of growth and knowing and experience have identity. They have, and we can speak to them. And I hear from the other elders that a lot of us do this. And I've done this my whole kind of life before it had a label attached to it. What I've started doing, because it's become so critical to really stay in this place and start from this place each morning, because I don't have that external structure that I was able to walk into. Because I realized that while I was succeeding as a physician, I was failing horribly as an employee. And figuring out what this transition is going to kind of look like as I say yes to Creator, and wanting to really step into being that healer. And so I want to show you, I've actually got this up, if someone can highlight my phone. I'm going to keep my sound on, but I want to show you. what I've done that really has taken this approach that has really saved me my whole life. And made it. Oh, can we turn off the recording, please?